What does the agitator in a converter do, and why do some have them and others don't? So the agitator, the most famous one I think, is the one that's in the Pilot Con 50, which is now on the outs. We're starting to see the Con 40, its replacement, coming in pens. So there are still some Con 50s floating around out there, but it was a number of years ago that they did not have an agitator in there. So here is the Con 50 pre-agitator. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. So here is the pre-agitator. So it looks like a Con 50 without the doohickey in it. So, you know, pretty wide mouth, a little wider on this one, and it has this kind of step right in the middle here. Oh, look at that, it's trying to zoom in on me instead of the converter. Let's see if we can make this happen. There we go. So it's got this little step right here. It's just a tiny little step. But what happens is the ink kind of hangs up in the back of it. So as you're writing, you know, it's fine, but then when you flip it over, you carry it, or it's stored nib up or whatever, the ink can kind of settle down in here. And then when you flip it back over to write, sometimes the ink hangs out back here. Or if it's, you know, hanging out like normal and then you're writing with it, the ink can kind of get used up right here. But if the rest of it doesn't fall down, then it breaks the flow to the nib and it dries up and you have to kind of shake it a little bit for it to come back down. It's not like a huge deal, but it happened enough where Pilot felt that they needed to put the agitator in place. So that's what this thing does. So it's a hollow piece of metal that basically just kind of scrapes the sides of the converter, and it just, you know, it's gravity weighted. So as you have it tilted up, all the ink kind of falls in the back, and then as it falls down, it pulls kind of the ink down with it. So it doesn't have ink that hangs up in the back anymore. And that's really the point of it. And then with the Con 40, they went to a slightly different design. So the overall shape of the converter is very similar, except they went with these little stainless steel pellets instead of the big agitator thing. So, you know, it has a little catcher thing that kind of catches all the pellets so it doesn't go down into your pen, but it works kind of the same concept. There's not a lot of other converters that have agitators like that. Here's one, the Pilot Con 70, slightly larger converter. This one's a little different because it's got this like metal rod with this rubber stopper thing. It actually helps to kind of seal up on the converter. When you press the button down, it seals it up, and then it does kind of a vacuum actuated thing when it fills. Very interesting kind of converter. There's nothing else like this really out there. But this rubber stopper is really meant to kind of vacuum the ink so that it fills, but it kind of doubles as an agitator because it can fall back and forth. It kind of helps in that way. Plus just having a rod in there kind of acts in that capacity as well. So that's one other one. And then another one that I've seen that's a kind of a different style. This is a Nemosine. This is called the Fission. But this one has a plastic bead inside the converter, and you can actually see the bead. If I can catch it in the right light there, it just fell. So it works pretty okay. I don't have a ton of ink in this pen right now, but you can see the bead right there, how the bead's kind of falling out of the ink, and it kind of helps to drag the ink down a little bit, just so it doesn't hang up quite as bad. Now this, with just one bead, can you see that? There's the bead, and it kind of falls down. Whoop, it's about to drop. Flop. There. The rest of the ink still kind of stays up there, but it's not as inclined. Yeah, it is kind of hanging out up there. And then, so this one's not foolproof, but this one I've seen in a couple of different styles of converter that are out there. Beyond that, there was one other one that I can think of that had like a metal spring kind of thing inside the converter, and I can't for the life of me find which pen that's in, but I know I have one that has that. I imagine the reason why most pen companies don't do that is really just for cost or for simplicity. You know, they just don't, they don't want to deal with having extra things inside their converter. Another reason not to do it, especially on the Con 50, not so much on the Con 40 because it's smaller little balls, but this one, you know, it's pretty loud. So even when you have it filled with ink, which does help to temper the sound a little bit, and it's inside your pen, you can shake it back and forth and you can hear kind of a rattle. And a lot of people, you know, who are particular about the sound didn't like that at all. So I know that was one complaint against the agitator. So I think a lot of companies just kind of steer away from it. There's not enough benefit for them to just go ahead and do it with the additional costs, the sound factor, and then will it even make a difference? On a lot of converters, it really doesn't matter. It seems to be only on certain converter designs, you know, that have the wider mouth that it's more of an issue. But that pretty much gets you up to speed on that.